Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Hello there, and a very good day to you. This is Newsline, supposedly live, but unfortunately, due to the football, FIFA, and so on and so forth, our time slot's been interrupted by the football. But this program is available on social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook, and on your regular channel. You can see it from 1 to 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon on TV1. The game that came in the way, of course, was England versus Iran. Now, England have given us all our rules, so I suppose we can let them go. And Iran, well, they gave us the Umayyad project, for which I think they're still waiting to get paid. But it is supplying water, and it is supplying, I think, 120 megawatts of power. Wonderful. Thank you. But, you know, this is Newsline. Our guest today is very gallantly sat here whilst the football was going on. But so thank you for that. But he is, of course, Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament from the TNA, all the way from the east, from Batticaloa. Very good day to you, Mr. Rasamanickam.
Well, good evening, good day, I guess.
Yes, we're a bit confused now.
Yes.
But nevertheless, here we are. So what chances, Mr. Rasamanickam, for reconciliation and for recovery? It's about 120 days since we have had this new president. What chances?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on Newsline once again. I think what you asked me, what chances of reconciliation and recovery, I think the path to recovery, I think the best option would be reconciliation. Reconciliation amongst ethnic communities in this country would be a good place to start our recovery process, because I feel that historically that's where this country went wrong. I've said this before, that we have been divided based on our diversity, and depriving people of their political rights led to a civil war, led to huge amounts of debt, and then debt and then corruption that has been unaccounted for, and here we are. So yes, it's been 120 days plus since the president got elected by the Parliament of Sri Lanka as the president. And we right now, as we speak, the budget for 2023 has been presented. And if you look at the budget for 2023, the government has increased taxes. There's a large increase in tax revenue, in income tax, and also tax on goods and services. And we agree, we understand that taxes need to be increased. We are in this horrid situation today because of a lot of the tax cuts that Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave away in 2019. But yes, there are some questions to be asked about if these taxes should have been paced out better rather than burdening the taxpayers at once. But for a country to go forward, yes, taxes are essential. Yeah. And also, in another sense, the taxes on consumer goods is also indirect tax that's going to be passed on to the consumers. If I was to give you numbers, precisely if we were to look at the numbers of some of these taxes, direct and indirect taxes, here we go. So the income taxes increased from 558 billion to 912 billion in since the last year. Taxes on goods and services from 972 billion to 1,763 billion. And then if you look at taxes on external trade, has gone not so significantly. But if you look at this taxes on goods and services, 972 billion has almost doubled to 1,763 billion. So now these taxes are the taxes that are increasing, that has caused a significant increase in prices. Now, this is the holiday, the holiday season's coming up, and then New Year for school is going to come up. And school children need to buy shoes, buy school bags, buy books, etc. And you see a very significant increase in prices. So
and sorry to interrupt you, but whilst that is so, we see the tax increases, and which is really affecting the general public. But what we don't see, the optics are wrong, because we don't see people in politics, we don't see a reduction in their expenditure, in their lifestyles and so on. And I find that absolutely appalling, and if nothing, poor manners.
Well, first of all, I never understood the logic behind the appointment of so many cabinet ministers and state
Precisely,
ministers.
that's exactly what.
And then district development committee chairs. That's another burden on the taxpayer. There are positions called district development chairs who are supposedly given the responsibility of looking after development activities in the district. Now, in our budget, we don't have a lot of funds allocated for capital expenditure or development.
Yeah.
So I really don't understand the actual task that these district development chairs are given. But like you precisely said, the optics don't look right. These ministers are being given benefits like vehicles, fuel, staff, and I hear that most of the ex-cabinet ministers who are now just ordinary members of parliament are still occupying their official residences that were given to them as ministers. So,
you see, this is the whole point, Mr. Rasamanickam. Now, we have optically we have a president from a different political ideology. However, when you look at all these things that are happening, this sort of waste or overspending, this is reminiscent of the Rajapaksa government. It's like, it is a Rajapaksa government by proxy.
well, it's unfortunate that it's still the SLPP. The most of the ministers, except for a few like Honorable Fernando, Honorable Nanayakkara, who went from the SJB, most of the cabinet ministers are still, or the state ministers are still the likes, still the folks who got elected from the SLPP. So that is probably why you still see
that's what it is. But if we get back to our current issues here, the president is quoted, the government is quoted in the Daily News, the state-owned newspaper today, that there is some reference to a 5-year plan. I'm sorry, but I must have missed the 5-year plan. What about you as a parliamentarian?
As a parliamentarian, we haven't been presented with a 5-year plan either.
Okay.
But let me finish on some of the things that we started discussing, so that we don't leave some of the questions hanging. So we were talking about the income tax and the taxation earlier. If you look at the expenditure, though, under expenditure, there is a section called subsidies and transfers. Now, we were told that this budget would be a budget that would be that would significantly address the vulnerable communities, where there be cash transfers given to vulnerable communities. The vulnerable communities would be looked after. But if you look at the budgetary allocations for the under expenditure, subsidies and transfers, in 2022, the subsidies and transfers were 1,021 billion, and in 2023, the subsidies and transfers are only 1,114 billion. So that is only an increase of nearly 95 or 90 plus billion, actually. Million. No, actually billion, I think. 1,000 billion.
No, they're both in billions. So if you
anyway, let's it's billion. Billion.
Okay.
So so if you look at it with inflation, so some of the ministers, when they responded to as to why Defence Ministry has gotten such a higher allocation of funds, their answer was because of inflation. Because of inflation, the costs have increased. Therefore, the defence budget has increased. But if the defence budget's cost has been increased, or the expenditure or the allocations have been increased due to inflation, why aren't we looking at the vulnerable communities who would get these cash transfers, what they do with this money? These people are also going to be affected by inflation. So that is one thing. I mean, on one hand, we are increasing the taxation on consumer goods, and on the other hand, we haven't even increased the allocations that are given to the vulnerable communities. And one more thing is that this is something that really that I couldn't believe earlier today in Parliament. Yesterday in Parliament, I spoke about it as well. An extra 5 of the President's budget actually says that support for low-income disabled people, the current benefit is rupees 5,000. Proposed release for 4 months is a monthly payment of 2,500. So,
It's gone down.
well, that's what the budget looks like. But
Yeah.
Honorable Sema Singha today in Parliament actually said that that's incorrect, that it's higher. But the budget says allowance for kidney patients, rupees 5,000, monthly payment of rupees 2,500 is a proposed relief for the next 4 months. So, I mean, on one hand, we are increasing taxes. On the other hand, we are cutting down some of the benefits that are to be that were given to the most poorest of the
most vulnerable in society.
vulnerable in society, the people with disabilities, people with diseases. So that is one. And coming back to the optics part of the ministers, see, it's one thing that ministers are appointed and ministers are, ministers are given these, let's say, under the circumstances to take this government forward. That perks and all these things are, that they feel that they're entitled to, or let's say to keep the government together, that they have to give these perks. But what really beats me is the amount of corruption that these state ministers are up to. Now, it is one thing to collect the benefits. I mean, even though they're absolutely wrong to have benefits for 70 plus ministers and district development committee chairs when the country is facing an economic crisis, but it's another thing for these ministers to be involved in large scale corruption. Now, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a few examples out of my own district, of the district of Batiklo. On the 18th of November 2022, there's a new document that has been released by the Batiklo district secretariat, where the state minister, a state minister in Batiklo, who is also the district development committee's chair, has allocated 44 acres of land for himself.
My God.
And he has approved the divisional on the divisional land use committee and the district land use committee. So, I mean, 44 acres of land for himself. And how do you do this? And his brother-in-law is accused of, our president just went to the funeral of the Queen.
Yes.
And she's the Queen, she's the second Elizabeth II, I think.
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth II.
Second, yes.
Now this particular state minister's brother-in-law has forged a document, a deed, and on the deed it says that Queen Elizabeth V has gifted this land back in 1800s or 1900s. So, I mean, this is the amount of corruption that's happening in my district. I mean, I raised a few of these issues. I don't want to take too much of my time, talking about allegations, but corruption has gotten so bad. I think these MPs either feel that they will never get elected again to Parliament, or they're gearing up for elections.
It's like now or never.
It's almost like now or never, and they're gearing up for elections, stealing as much as they can. So President Wickremesinghe actually has to put an end to this right now, because I mean, a lot of these accusations of against President Wickremesinghe is that he hasn't stopped people who are stealing, even though most of these allegations against him, it's not that he has
stolen
been corrupt
himself.
Most of these allegations are where people connected to him have stolen and he has turned a blind eye. So I would like to urge President Wickremesinghe right now, at least put an end to the corruption of these district development committees. I mean, I can give you examples of Trincomalee and Ampara as well, but that will be the entire show. Yeah. So I think right now, at least to show the country, I mean, whatever money that the Rajapaksa stole, whatever cases against them, I spoke to somebody in the government, and what they say is that from 2020 to 2022, all the cases, all the investigations that they had started through the Attorney General's Department have ended. So these cases can't be reopened now, because before they fled the country. Somehow these cases have ended and they have been acquitted of all the charges against them. So I mean, we'll have
double jeopardy. You can't bring them to court again.
Well, we'll have to find out new ways. I hear there are ways to do that internationally, but these are things that we need to explore. But if that's the case about corruption that has already happened, at least let's stop the corruption that's happening right now.
Indeed. And as we head for a break, I thought I'd take this question. We've had several questions or queries from our loyal and invaluable viewers, and thank you, each and every one of you. I'll just read this one, if I may. Hello, Fraz. Your program was not televised on TV1 today. Could you please send me the link? Very much appreciated. My husband is really depressed for not having been able to watch Newsline. And the person says, God bless. Well, we're terribly sorry, but it's football. And we'll put out an announcement as to when you can watch the program properly. But it is available on social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. Right now, we'll head for a break and we'll see you on the other side. We are, of course, in conversation with Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament, TNA, Batticaloa.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline. I'm in conversation with Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament, TNA, Batticaloa. Thank you very much for being on the program. Now then, I want to say this to you. You know, we had this budget, and we are in the deepest possible abyss in terms of our economy and the lack of dollars and so on. But in this budget, I didn't see any reference to the 48 economic indicators or economic activities of our country. All our economic activities broken down, and there are 48 main ones. So if we are going to up the game, surely we would have seen the Ministry of Finance and so on saying, look, we are going to focus sort of fullest efforts on this, this and this. But we don't know what this, and this is. For example, the farmers out there, the fertilizer for paddy cultivation is 200,000 rupees a ton. The fertilizer for all other types of agri is 360,000 rupees a ton. Interest rates are north of 32%. How are the people, especially let's say in a challenging district like yours, how are these people going to afford to pay for their food?
Well, the food crisis is something that we all have to anticipate. Even though we've got fertilizer for this season,
Yeah.
you know, we haven't had a bumper stock in the last couple of seasons. So right now in Batticaloa, I would say the most people, the livelihood in Batticaloa would be fisheries, agriculture or livestock, and the number of people who depend on government employment or private sector employment is very less. And in the last 2 years, some of the decisions that the government took has taken a really bad hit on the people of Batticaloa. Well, most of the people, there's a brain drain happening right now in the country. Most youth want to leave the country. I get a number of people who come to me asking for support to leave the country through to go to the Middle East, asking for financial help to go to the Middle East. And also, there's a lot of illegal immigration that's happening as well.
Yes.
And on the 22nd of September 2022, there's an article that was done by the ABC, Australian ABC, where, you know, again, a state minister from Batticaloa, his brother, is involved in, or rather is accused
Of human smuggling?
Of human smuggling with 2 trawlers that he apparently owns. It's on the ABC. I can share the link with you. So brain drain is something that we really need to address. But how they survive right now is most families have at least a relative or sibling or somebody who has gone to the Middle East, you know, working as a domestic aid or as
So some money is coming in.
Well, that is the only way that I could see people putting food on the table, because within the district, there seems to be, I mean, agriculture, yes, we have fertilizer now, but the seasons are starting. Fisheries, there's still limits on fuels for QR codes for men to go out to sea. There are issues. Livestock, there are issues with pasture land, and people are selling their cattle because there's a conflict going on with the governor and so on. So that's the only way that I see people surviving. And then there's also more people who want to go to European countries and, you know, are trying to do skilled migration. So we, as a country, for us, we are going to have a brain drain in the next decade or so, where and the government is encouraging people in the public sector to take no pay leave for 5 years and to go. And most of these employees probably, I mean, to move to a country, you need skills. It's most of the countries want skilled labor.
Indeed.
And people with English. And, you know, so we are sending the cream of our country's employment or the workforce out of the country, and maybe we might never see them again. So, you know, Batiklo and the north and the east, at least we have some resources. We should focus more on people in the western province. I mean, when I say natural resources, most houses will have, well, not in the metropolitan area, not in the municipality area, but when you go out of the municipality area or the metropolitan areas in Batiklo or in the north and the east, most houses will have trees or coconut trees, or they'll have access to some sort of, some vegetation or, vegetables that they can do home. But think about the middle class that's living in Colombo. Think about the lower middle class. I mean, if there's something called middle class or lower middle class.
I don't think there is anymore.
Well, people who live in small houses inside, like concrete jungles within all these metropolitan urban areas in Colombo, what are they going to do? I mean, so this is something that we really need to get together and focus on. And like you said about how we can come out of this crisis is that we need to bring in dollars. That's the only way out of this crisis.
And that's the whole problem. Even when there was a Parliament government on this.
Well, there's ganja on the cards now.
I was about to say, they make all these promises. There's no dollar earning strategy excepting one, and that is weed, ganja. Really, are we going to buck our reserves up? Are we going to get on a high, economically speaking, of course, on ganja? I mean, come on, what is going on?
Well, representing the Tamil National Alliance as a Tamil MP, we actually had a proposal for the president. This country has, when we started the program, we spoke about reconciliation.
Yeah.
And our solution to all these problems has been to devolve power to the provinces or to a regional body where even people who live in the north and the east can enjoy political power. And through devolving power, I've started this new campaign called Devolution for Development, how devolution can assist in development. And we had the first round of meetings with the Young Men's Buddhist Association, and we hope to continue that program. How devolution has developed countries. For us in 2005, people voted to end the war.
Yeah.
Right? In 1994, I think when Madam Chandrika won, it was for abolishing executive presidency, ending the war, all these peace and all that. But in 2015, it was for good governance. In 2020, it was for national security because there's Easter Sunday conspiracy. I think it
still remains a conspiracy.
I think it might end up remaining a conspiracy forever. But the next possible election, I think the campaign would be, or people would vote for people who have a proper economic revival plan, and people who actually have a plan. So I would say that if you look at developed nations, you can look at Switzerland or most of these countries. Even if you look at India, if you look at Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they're doing so well. The regional governments.
This is it. Regionally, the growth rate, the average growth rate in this region is 6.5%. Tiny Maldives is growing at 8.4%. But in Sri Lanka, we have a minus situation.
Well, the solution to that we proposed was to devolve power. We can talk about how we figure it out. There's no set set rules saying this is how it should be done. But President has promised that by the 75th year of independence before the 4th of February, that all issues will be resolved. And as a party,
Do you believe that?
Well, as a party, I was going to say that. As a party, we've always been hopeful for 74 years. Yeah. The various leaders who in my party have had agreements with various leaders, from Bandaranayakas to from Dudley Senanayaka to Premadasa Jaya, the Rajapaksas, to everyone. And every time we have some sort of hope when the leader of the country promises to resolve issues. So likewise, we are again hopeful. And I think the point that I was trying to get to was, I think as a country, we should look at how devolution. Now, when I say devolution, if you look at provinces like the southern province, I mean, now let's just take a small example. Now, we spoke about land earlier. Let's say a minister in charge for land is, let's say he's from Anuradhapura. I mean, what knowledge does he have about the southern province? So he makes decisions about land in the southern province from Anuradhapura or from Colombo with zero knowledge about the province. So through devolution, you empower the people or the leaders of that region, the political leaders of that region, to take this. I think that makes the process faster. If somebody wants to get approvals for land,
there has to be real devolution in the sense that you really need to let that authority in that region get on with it.
Precisely, and I think that would address the long-standing national Tamil issue, the national Tamil ethnic question that has been unresolved for 7 decades. And I said this in Parliament today as well. And if you look at the Tamil people's issues, it's been 74 years, and to date, the people in the north and the east vote for my party continuously, and our party does not advocate for separatism. Our country, our party advocates for one united Sri Lanka, one Sri Lanka, and within Sri Lanka to share power. So, and our party's election manifesto has been very consistent, and it has always said that vote for our party, we will ensure that you get your political rights. So I think even if this government doesn't provide an answer, let's say even if another government doesn't provide an answer, even if it's 75 years, I think this problem would continue. There's not going to be a point where the Tamil people are going to say, okay, look, you know what, we give up, we don't want political rights. So as long as the Tamil people want their political rights, this country will have an unresolved issue that it will carry forward, which will not let the country go forward. So I think reconciliation within ethnic communities is essential for a recovery. That's a brilliant slogan that you've had for today. You've brought in for today.
I want to finish the program. We've only got about a minute or so left. But I want to finish by but I want to say this. 3 major events in this country, and legally nothing has been done. One is the so-called bond scam. 2, the Easter bombings. Some people are still being held under detention orders and so on. And the third, of course, was, remember that day, sometime in May, when basically thugs came out of temple trees and attacked the peaceful Aragale protesters. Shameful. Nothing's been done. On those 3 notes, do you think, Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, do you think that you're up against a central government which is at best racist and communal?
Well, there is no point in being negative. We all know what we're up against. As a young member of parliament, I think it's my duty to instill hope in the youth of this country that there is still a future for Sri Lanka, for Sri Lankans in this country. Governments change, presidents change, but that doesn't mean that we need to give up what we aspire our country to be.
Which is, what you aspire is to be a full paid-up member of the citizenry of Sri Lanka.
Well, there's a lot more to what I would aspire for this country than in just those few words.
Yeah.
But what I would aspire for this country to be, for this country to actually live to its promise. I saw in President's speech, he said that Lee Kuan Yew, after Japan, we were the second the economy. And something about Lee Kuan Yew, how Lee Kuan Yew did something completely different to what Sri Lanka did, or something. I saw a reference to what he had said, that Bandaranaike is doing the popular thing, whereas he will do the hard thing to build up the country, or something like that in 1950s. So that promise, that promise is what I aspire for this country, and which is what I would work towards. And corruption's there, things look really hard, but if we lose hope, and if we give up, I think the country would fail even more. So we need to stay positive, and we need to always
live with hope.
Live with hope, and actually work towards a better Sri Lanka than actually just sit and hope.
Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you, Faraz.
Thank you. And that's the way it was on Newsline. We were, of course, in conversation with Member of Parliament for the TNA, Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam. Thank you, take care, and as always, God bless you all.